Where do you think rates would have to be for you to buy the same deals and we're really to do cash flow?
I think the 6.5 to 7 is a decent place to be. I mean, it's not the best, but I think there you can manageably buy some assets, especially with the equity, to be able to cash flow a little bit more. Right now, it definitely hurts, but if you have the equity built into it and not a crazy prepayment penalty on the front end, you can just restructure your debt as time goes on. So you need to know what you're signing on when you're doing these loans and not just signing on to whatever debt you can get.
All right, Tom, thanks for joining us today. Welcome to the show and looking forward to jump in and learn a lot more about you today.
Thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got a kind of an interesting story. It's kind of cool. I've been in the real estate game a long time. So, home inspector to real estate investor is pretty rad. It's kind of funny. I wonder why more don't do it because they sit here and you look at like nice properties, shitty properties, all these properties, you start realizing where the value's at, where it's not, right? So, and you guys are probably making deals or breaking deals or whatever for people because some people are always like, those home inspectors, they're just too critical. This is overkill. And I'm like, well, isn't that kind of what you want when you buy a home though?
Right. You either love us or you hate us. It's back and forth all the time.
Yeah. So if you can kind of jump in, just give us a little bit about your background. I mean, how you kind of landed here today. That'd be a kind of a good start for everybody.
Sure. Yeah, I took the traditional route. I'm sure a lot of people on your podcast don't really take the traditional route, but one of 5 kids, went to college. I got a degree in finance and entrepreneurship, whatever that means. I still don't really know what it means. And I'm the oldest boy of the 5 kids. So I decided to go home and work with my dad after graduation. He's been an entrepreneur his whole adult career pretty much. He started a home inspection business 23 years ago. He bought a franchise. So I grew up around it, but also at the same time, 08, 09, I was 12, 13, 14 years old. He got calls from a bank or banks, plural, and they asked him to start winterizing houses, changing locks. And as the market was changing, so was the service industry. So he ended up starting a giant property preservation business, basically to service all the houses that were getting foreclosed on. And they were making a lot of money. So I grew up in that business. So I mowed a lot of lawns, a hell of a lot of lawns, a lot of trash outs, a lot of drive-bys for occupancy, changed a lot of locks. So kind of grew up in the nastier side of the real estate. So seeing like how bad it can be and how people can live. So then graduated college in 2017 and became a home inspector because that property preservation business had closed its doors, less foreclosures, money tightens up from that side, and decided to close it up. And he was a one-man show on the home inspection side. So I had to build that business pretty much up from kind of, I wouldn't say nothing because he still had business, but there was no marketing, there was no sales, there was no online, it was very old school. So basically apprentice model, learned how to become a home inspector. He would point, I would listen and learn construction that way. So built his business up, I would say 5 times revenue over the next 3-4 years and built some systems and some processes, learned how to sell. And at the same time, I was doing a ton of draw inspections for banks. So if you go to get a FHA 203K loan or a hard money loan, an inspector has to come out to ensure that the progress is progressing in order for them to release your funds. We were that people. So I got to see, like you said at the beginning, beautiful houses, absolutely destroyed houses, people fixing up houses, good contractors, bad contractors. And I just started seeing what the lifestyles the investors were living. Could never get a hold of them. They were either on vacation or driving in that really nice car at the house. So I was like, okay, that stuff sounds really, really nice. And jumped in with my uncle. So after graduation, he asked me to invest in real estate. It kind of all comes together. It's really weird how it happened. I told him no because I didn't know anything about it. Long story short, we bought our first flip about 6 months later. I was 23. Me and him over the next 18 months lost $100,000 on that flip. I lived in it, bounced room to room. It was a nightmare. We can dig into that too if you want. So lost that, ended up, and then just kind of went all in from there. It was like, this is the worst it could be. There's no way it can get worse. I've listened to 500 Bigger Pockets podcasts by this time. Like, I can't quit. So now fast forward 6 years, I'm 29 years old. We own $15 million worth of real estate or so. When I say we, I have a business partner now that I met 3 years ago during a home inspection. And we've wholesaled probably 150, 200 deals and flipped another 150 or so. I know it's long-winded.
Wow, that was definitely like a mouthful. You got a lot going on. So I want to break some of that down. I think the first thing is just kind of talk about the property inspection. So I actually, we are investors, but I do mortgages. So it's kind of funny. Like I was literally looking at a property inspection last night for everybody that's going to, buy a home. And I didn't, it's like, I know they're like every little, tad bit and it's overkill. But I think what's kind of cool is I think some people respect the fact of what you guys do. And some people are like haters because you're like killing deals. But I kind of want to back up about, you got started as an inspector. And then before we go into the aha moment, like I think the aha moment was you is almost for me, you're like, these real estate investors, these guys never work. Like, what are they? That's how we are here. My wife does commercial. We were friends with the, large apartment owners, investors. I'm like, 50, 60, these guys have the life. And then you see other people are W-2 and you're like, their life sucks. Like, that's like it's easy to tell, right? Like, but let's talk about the inspection part. Number one is you've done, I think, 5,000 inspections or so, maybe it's more now. Why, when you enter a property, I think what makes you such a good investor too, is you just have a different lens than the most of us. It's like, even me is all the stuff we've done, the management, all this, like I just walk in a property. I'm like, well, I'm looking at it differently. We're not emotional. We're very business. And so what do you think is from you having that background, where do you see like the biggest challenge with somebody where they're walking a property, they're just like looking at things from the wrong lens,
Yeah. I like to tell everybody that becoming a home inspector made me a completely self-sufficient real estate investor. So most real estate investors, they go into a house and most of the stuff in the house, they're reliant on somebody else to tell them what's going on. So if you can cut that middleman out, usually it's a general contractor or an inspector that's going to tell them. So if they're wrong, you're completely building your business and your finances off of what they say. So if you can learn that skill, nobody can tell you anything. So when I'm walking houses, it's just, I'm looking at them differently. Like you said, I'm looking at the grading. I'm looking at the window types. I'm making inferences based off the ages of the houses. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. We have 1800s all the way to brand new. Those houses are not the same. So being able to quickly identify that. And then also being a home inspector, I'm driving around all day, like multiple inspections a day. You get to learn micro markets very, very fast, especially like the types of houses within each. So I could tell you you name off any street pretty much in Columbus. I can tell you the zip code. I can tell you how the houses are built. I could tell you some of the foundation issues that come with some.
Damn, so that's true. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So really like just allowing it didn't seem cool at the time, but now people are like, wow, that's really cool. It's like, oh yeah, I guess it is kind of cool that you can kind of just rattle things off pretty fast and not have anybody tell you that you're wrong.
Yeah, that's interesting. We manage like 1,500 units here and we help build portfolios and we did a lot of rehab. And so it's funny, we were having this talk with one of our mentors, big owner here. And he was saying like, somebody's always like, oh, I'm going to buy an apartment building in this area because the cap rates are this. And he's like, well, have you ever run a property in there for 5 years? Because like, it's one thing that's on a piece of paper, but running it and dealing with the maintenance, the overhead, the tenants, all this, it's like, is it really that, are you really getting that return over 5 years or not? Right. And so it's kind of funny you say that. I didn't think about it, inspector. You're like, probably like the areas to like stay away from or not, just from like so many different reasons from inspector, right? How can somebody, how can somebody like not be an inspector and inspect 5,000 houses and kind of hack it and, have your kind of lens? What is something they can do, or how is something they can learn faster than not, have to do what you did? If there's a possible way to do that,
I mean, there's no way around the hard work of learning. So you can take a course, you can have a mentor, the biggest thing is maybe working for maybe a construction crew or a general contractor and just see all the houses and see how they're constructed. That'd be a good way, and getting your hands dirty that way. But it takes a lot of time. So, I've tried to build out a full encompassing course before, and it's just so much. So the long story short, I would just say you got to get on site. You just got to start walking as many houses as possible, however you can.
So let's talk about the inspection before we kind of move on. What do you think? You've done 5,000 homes. My suggestion to people is, hey, look, when you're getting an inspection report, I wouldn't really worry about the little nitty gritty stuff. You definitely want to worry about the big stuff, plumbing, electric, foundation, roof. Like, what do you think where you've seen, you're like, man, over this many houses, like this is really deal killers for people, maybe a first time home buyer buying, where it's almost could be a deal killer if you don't have the cash to fix and you should walk away, right? I hate to say that, but they need to know, it's like.
Yeah. First time, it's all about expectation too. Like, are you going into a house that is newer? Is it older? Is it a fixer upper? Is it not? If it's a flipped house, I mean, you got to be very critical of it, especially if you're a first time home buyer, because if somebody puts lipstick on a turd, like they say, I mean, it can be very detrimental. But to answer your question, I mean, the big ticket items, if there's major foundation issues, I'm in Ohio, we have basements, roofs, but money fixes everything. You just got to make sure that you're running your numbers and you're using that. You're not just buying an inspection report. It's also a negotiation piece.
Exactly.
You can use that to negotiate down. So even as in my wholesaling company, every deal we do, my first piece of the puzzle is getting an inspection on it. It's not a full blown, but it's an abbreviated, because now I can negotiate with the seller and I can negotiate with the buyer. So I have leveraged both ways on that thing. And it's not me coming in saying, hey, this is wrong. It's an actual branded company saying, hey, like, this is actually, the roof is this old, the furnace is this old, the foundation is Boeing, and use that to negotiate and clear the air with everybody.
Yeah, we always call the contingency removal here is the second negotiation. People go, what do you mean? I'm like, well, you're taking your inspection report, you're analyzing it, and you're realizing I was expecting to buy this house. Like you said, my expectation was, and if you're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to spend $250,000, you're like, okay, maybe I don't need to do anything. I mean, obviously I'm talking about places here in San Diego, it's a little, so, or you're like, hey, I was kind of hoping it was move-in ready. And then all of a sudden now you're like, man, we got some serious issues. That's a different story. So I think you're right. It is I think people don't realize the inspection piece is the second negotiation. So do you also, with inspections, you recommend people, camera the plumbing lines and get a roofer out there? Like, how detailed do you think somebody should go? I know it depends on expectations, but maybe somebody's buying a flip and they think it's ready. You should, because, you don't have to do anything, but there's these underlying things that you can't see, right? Like,
I wouldn't worry about like the general stuff, like a roofer, an HVAC person, unless it's just a giant mansion house, possibly. But the one I would get is absolutely a camera inspection, the sewer line, especially if it's, we say, about 50 years or older. You just never know what's going on underground.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I kind of want to move in, because obviously I think like a lot of us that are investing in real estate, or, getting out of a W-2 job, whatever, or running a company, I want to do something else. You had an aha moment. The good news for you had an aha moment in your 20s, not in your 40s for a lot of people, right? Why do you think, and are you guys still have the inspection company, or you sold it, or?
Yeah, my dad still runs it. Okay. Both my little brothers work full time for him now.
Okay. Why do you think you had the aha moment?
I've always loved money, and I wasn't making that much money for my dad. I mean, I post a few TikToks. They're like, oh, your dad is an asshole, he wouldn't pay you. It's like, no, I mean, you got to earn your stripes. So I was making like $40,000 a year. I was still living in my parents' basement. And I've always wanted money. And then also at the same time, like I said, I'm one of 5 kids. My dad's always been an entrepreneur, but he's also worked his absolute ass off. So waking up at 4:30 in the morning, working all day. He was my coach in my teams. He was at the soccer games. He was at the but nonetheless, he was still working nonstop. So the aha moment, I had already known about it, and I was going, and I was just enticed by the money. But I've started telling the story. I never really did before, but I was in Nashville. I think I was 24 years old with my friends, bachelor party, having fun. And I got a call from my mom, and she was like, hey, you got to come home right now. Dad is in the hospital. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, my dad was like 50 years old at the time. He works out every day. He's fit. He had 10 strokes. So he had one full blood clot here and then one partial here in the back of his neck. And they took a CAT scan of his brain, and I can show you guys if you want this, but basically, if you ever played the old game Mines on like the desktops where you click and there's a bomb or there's not, all those white dots, the doctor said, hey, if this was like Mines and it hit any other places, he would be dead, brain dead, or not the same person.
Wow.
So I was like, 24 years old, I'm his right-hand man. I'm helping him build his business. I'm like, holy shit. Okay, this is different. Like, you can't get up and work. Like, hard work is, you have to work hard. That's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
But there's more to life than getting up at the ass crack of dawn and working till the end of the day and then doing it again and again and stressing over money. So you have like their money's created differently in different avenues. So you can be the best coal miner ever, but you're never going to retire financially free. So you just got to really figure out a different avenue. For me, it was within real estate already, luckily. And I just flipped a switch and I was like, okay, it's going to be rental properties, it's going to be wholesaling, it's going to be flipping properties and building systems and teams within that to grow a business.
Wow. That's, yeah. I mean, that will definitely stop you in your tracks and get your attention. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think our generation is a little bit lucky because we have the internet. So we have the books, the courses, and we can hear about all the people that struggled or like, how did that guy make it? And what did he do? When we never could hear a story, we get to see him on the pod, right? It's like so he deployed his money when he made it, you know? And I think so many, it's like the whole thing is go to school, get a job, have a kid, buy a house, get a 401k. That is not really appetizing for a lot of us anymore because the end result, like you said, is you wake up one day and you haven't enjoyed life, you barely have enough money to retire, and you're probably not that healthy, right? Or whatever, or you're dead.
Right.
So you did the first deal, lost money. I guess what was it's kind of funny. You're just like, I got to jump back in the water and keep swimming. So most people would give up, right? Because they just lost money. I guess, why did you not give up at that point?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just the saying of, I mean, if you're broke already, I mean, and you lose it all, you're just broke again. So I knew I had the dream. And I'm maybe I'm just dumb and I'm just relentless about what I wanted to do. But I mean, if your dreams are big enough, you're going to keep going. So I ended up moving back home with my parents. Like I said, I lived in that flip. I'm probably 24 now at the time. I moved back in with my parents. And just to preface, my uncle was a financing partner. We lost $100,000. I had a little bit of money in that, but it wasn't all of my money. It was a lot of my time. I always like to preface that. But I went back home, living with my parents, and then wholesaling was my way out. I was like, okay, I know I want rental properties. I know I want to flip, but right now I have $800 in my bank account or so. I need to figure out how to do this wholesaling thing. So I sent out postcards, $800 on postcards, got 3 phone calls from that. One of those I put in contract for $54,000. I was going to try and wholesale it. There was a meet up in Columbus at the time. It was called Columbus Deal Makers. You would go and present deals and people would buy it basically or not, or there's Facebook groups too. Nobody wanted it at that meetup. And I was just like, okay, what do I do? So I did what they say on the podcast, Bigger Pockets, like call everybody in your phone and try and raise money to then flip it. So I did that. A family friend that lived around the corner from me my entire life was a realtor. She ended up writing me a check on her dinner table for $65,000 to my name to close that deal. Froze my bank account because it was a college account still. I never had more than $1,000 in it at a time. And another long story short, 5 months later, we made 50 grand on that deal. I cut her a $25,000 profit check. I made 25,000. And the week before that closed, I bought my first house hack. So FHA loan, duplex, lived in one unit, rented all my bedrooms out, and the other unit was rented out. So I was living for free, just doing kind of the young person thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, not giving up. I think that's really the name of the game is for anything, it's work hard. But I mean, whoever thinks you're just going to get it right the first time. And I tell people when you do, I'm like, you're lucky, but you better be prepared because, you might get it later on. Right. Like, all right. So from there, you really scaled things and took off. So at that point when did you get a partner? When did you really start scaling? And then can you kind of talk about, I guess, that part and then what kind of did you buy from now and then? What have you kind of bought and what's the focus?
Sure. So I was still living in that house. I'd done maybe another 2 or 3 wholesale deals, but I like to say I was a half-ass wholesaler. I was sending out texts every now and again. I had no system. I had no follow-up. So I was doing a home inspection. I was doing a draw, an initial for the bank. And my now business partner was buying the house. He had an old partner, his old best friend from high school. And the person that was selling it was 20 minutes late. So we had 20 minutes just kind of hang out and talk. And one thing led to another. I saw him posting deals on Facebook. He saw the same for me. And we were both younger. We were like, hey, let's just try this together. And our agreement was, hey, he would do the acquisitions. He comes from 10 years in car sales. He owned car lots, then went bankrupt when he was 24. That's a whole nother story. And then was a sales manager for another 6. So he knew sales, he knew acquisitions. I had a great network and I was going to do the selling of the deals. So jumped right in. And I think that next year we did 50 wholesale deals together. So pretty much just was one of those things that it came together and just exploded. Right place, right time. And kind of took off from there. So at that same time, we were only wholesaling together. So when we would make money, we would split it. We would take it to our own bank accounts. I ended up buying another house hack. So bought a duplex 2 blocks up, lived in, I bought one roommate that time, so 3, rent out the other side and live for free again. Bought a couple more rentals using the Burr method. And then what really happened was we came together and we were like, okay, we trust each other now. We've done a bunch of deals. We have the deal flow. I know both of us want to own rental properties. Let's just do this together. So that was about 2020 going into 2021. Rates were still low and great. So we ended up just buying a lot of the deals that we were wholesaling and flipping at the time.
Did you guys raise money, your own money, or?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the capital raiser. I am the capital raiser in our business. It's all private money.
Cool. Good for you guys. Good story. That's awesome. So as you sit now in your portfolio, can we talk about that? So you're still wholesaling deals, right?
Yep.
So that is just like on autopilot?
Yeah. I mean, wholesaling is never really on autopilot, but it's systemized. Yeah.
It's more systemized. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very systemized, and we have 2 acquisitions team members. We just kind of look over KPIs and make sure the team's going in the right direction. But yeah, wholesaling, it's my favorite business, kind of. It's a lot of work, but everything starts with the deal. You need the deal to be able to, and wholesaling is just one exit strategy.
And then for you guys, you get a good deal, you'll cherry pick the really, really good ones, right? Okay, cool. So that for you, it's a good deal flow for you. It works. You have a lot of guys here that flip a lot and they wholesale. And I was like, why are you wholesaling? Like, Kenny, that's how you're going to find the home runs. You're not going to find, it's like deal flow. So here, a lot of my friends are doing, talking to realtors. They actually call stuff on the MLS because you never know, falls out pending, somebody's desperate, need to go.
Yeah.
They're getting, obviously the realtor calls, they're dropping mail, they're doing calls. I mean, are you kind of doing all the above? Is there anything that's like crushing it for you guys that really works well?
For the last 4 years, only things we've done is cold call and text. So we do only outbound marketing. So we have a pretty in-depth system of, it's a lot of follow-up. So a very, very good CRM that catches everybody in the web. We use VAs overseas to cold call and our in-house VAs to do the texting.
So and you find the overseas VAs, it works well?
Yeah. It just depends on so for cold calling, it's a whole nother company that we just hire and they just churn and burn phone calls. And when somebody raises their hand as a lead, they shoot it into our system. The other VAs that we have, those we actually found them, we sourced the talent, and then they're actually part of our team. They sit in our Slack. They're in team meetings. They're part of my company's Legacy Homes. They're part of Legacy Homes.
Yeah, that really cut costs for you guys too. And you can just,
absolutely.
Just go. So right now you have your real estate portfolio. Is it 65 different units or is it homes or what's it comprised of,
It's a good mix of 1 to 4 units. We have an 8-unit thrown in there and a couple of mixed uses, but mostly like single families and duplexes. Columbus has a lot of small multis like that. So mostly residential. Yeah. And it's probably like 50 properties, 65, 70 units.
Are they all long-term, any short-term?
So we have, there's some short-term sprinkled in there. We probably have 8 to 10 short-terms. I don't love short-term. It just doesn't really do what everybody says, at least in Columbus. So we have some short-terms in there and we manage them ourselves.
Yeah, I think short-term, we have here in San Diego, it does well, but I think it's not as glamorous as people think, And the cool thing I think about with when you just do long-term rentals and you can buy the property, you kind of know like this is the rent, this is expenses. It's kind of more predictable. I think with the Airbnb, they can change the regulation. They can get more competition. With the economy, it definitely would change, not even just how many bookings, but also what you're going to be able to get per night, right? So there's so many variables that go into it. And then obviously your units and stuff get beat up way more because they're just like turn and burns, So
we've been working on this for the past few months. We always want to bring as much value as we possibly can. And our partner, Prime Corporate Services, is all about bringing you a service you can't get anywhere else at a price you can't get anywhere else. Whether you're new to owning a business or owning a property, or you're an experienced property owner or investor, Prime Corporate Services is not only going to help you, but they're going to make the process so much easier. So if you book a call, the first thing they're going to do for you is help you understand what your business structure should look like, your corporate structure, tax planning, estate planning, all of that. Maybe you're saying, I'm brand new to starting a business and all this sounds foreign and complicated. Remember, this company helps new people just getting started every day. They're going to help you form the entity that's best for you and walk you through the process. Before I found this company, we paid thousands of dollars to other attorneys, CPAs, and consultants to try to understand exactly how we need to be structured to be as protected as possible. We've also gone the other route and used online platforms to form entities which unnecessarily put us at risk. You guys, you don't have to do that with this company. They'll do all of these things for you at a reasonable price so you never have to think about saving money at the expense of exposing yourself to liability. We've searched high and low, and you will not find this much value anywhere else. All you have to do is schedule a free call today. Just go to primecorporateservices.info/GITCG. Once again, that's primecorporateservices.info/GITCG. We'll also leave the info for you in the show notes.
What are you kind of seeing the market there? Because you're just hyper focused in your market there, correct?
Yeah. Correct.
Okay. What are you kind of seeing moving into 2024? Like, where do you see the market going there? What do you kind of like, what do you guys think you're going to be focusing on? The same stuff or anything different?
Yeah, we're flipping a lot right now. That's kind of our main thing, is just kind of stacking capital. So wholesaling and flipping. And if we have either a flip we can't sell, which happens, or just a deal that comes by that it's just an absolute home run, because we're doing a lot of DSCR loans on the back end. If we do keep them, it's just hard to cash flow a single family, even in Columbus. Like, people think of Ohio and they're like, oh, it's cash flow, but they're really thinking of like Dayton and Cleveland, where you can get a house for like 50 grand and turnkey. Our price point probably is average of like 150 for a single family now, and the rents are about 1%. So It doesn't really crush on that end, especially with rates the way they are. So yeah, we're focusing on flipping. We're building that up continuously. We're flipping 10 to 15 at a time right now. So continuing deal flow, mastering the construction side, because if and when rates do drop, I want to be able to kind of turn that nozzle to the rental side. And we're just doing the BRRRR method anyway. So it's the same process, just instead of putting it on the market and selling it, we just get a renter in there and take it. Hopefully we're going to be community banking heavily at that point, taking it to a bank, bundling them up and refinancing like good debt.
Just do like a wrap loan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely, we've done those for clients. It can be, when rates are low, it can be really good, especially if you get like a wrap and they're willing to give you IO. It's like a good cash flow. So that's a good question. Because you're looking at these deals, where do you think, for you as an investor, this is a great question. And like you do say, like, people are like, oh, go to Ohio, the cap rates are better. I'm like, it's not always true though. It's not really, right? People think that all over the country, and it has its pluses and minuses. But where do you think rates, when you run your size or your model, where do you think rates would have to be for you to buy the same deals and where really they do cash flow?
I think that the 6.5 to 7 is a decent place to be. I mean, it's not the best, but I think there you can manageably buy some assets, especially if you have the equity, to be able to cash flow a little bit more. Right now, it definitely hurts, but if you have the equity built into it and not a crazy prepayment penalty on the front end, you can just restructure your debt as time goes on. But the problem is, most people, DSCR loans are glorified right now, right? You hear them everywhere. You hear them on the internet. And there's a lot of misconceptions with it. Most of them have a 5-year prepayment penalty, whether it's 5 points or a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 step down. So I always tell this story to people that don't really know. We got a DSCR loan on a triplex. The loan is $580,000. If I go to sell that house or refinance it this year or next year, I'm going to pay 5 points to that bank to pay it off. That's 35 grand or something like that. That's a lot of money. So you need to know what you're signing on when you're doing these loans, and not just signing on to whatever debt you can get.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So I do residential. I work with a lot of investors. My wife does commercials. So, those prepays can be yield maintenance. It can be really gnarly, right? So when we deal with guys buying first-time apartment buildings that they've never bought, we're like, look, it's not about the rate and leverage. You're like, we also about the prepay. They're like, why? I'm like, what are you doing with this? Are you going to sell? Are you going to BRRRR? Are you going to refi? Like, so it's the same thing. As there's a lot of, I hate to say this, but there's a lot of rookie LOs. They see this DSCR. They don't really understand what they're giving a client. So I don't think any of my clients, I get when rates for 3s and 5s, sure, lock the 5-year prepay. You're probably not going to do anything, right? If that thing's cash flowing, good for you. Yeah. But right now, we're doing 0 to 1 year prepays because they're 5%. So I think a lot of people rates are going to drop, and they didn't understand what they got into. You know where I'm going. And then they're going to go, oh, I want to refi. They're going to call their guy and go, oh, you don't remember? No, you have a 30,000, a 50,000, 80,000. What? And they're going to be like, this is bullshit. And they're stuck.
Yeah. And then you got to look at your cash on cash. Like, is it worth bringing 100 grand cash to close this thing? Is it not? So really reading the fine print on those things is just so important.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I'm very big on upfront saying we had maybe we have some doing 2, but it's pretty much I do a 1, take a higher rate. It's not worth it. You're going to regret it. I've had to fight back some people, and I think they're like, okay, because rates are starting to come down. I think next year we're going to see rates really come down. It's seeming that way. And I think you'll do well. Honestly, I think when you wrap your stuff, I think you can find a community bank. You guys could get rates maybe in the 5s with an IO, and you guys would, based on what you're saying, you probably really crush it with the so.
Yeah, that's the plan.
So are you guys, do you think you're going to transition more into apartment buildings? You're going to kind of stay in the 1 to 4s, or is it just that better for the market there, like kind of the 2 to 4?
I'm going to stay. I mean, I think I'll always be in the 1 to 4 space. I think there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, it's kind of a newer asset class as far as like the bigger investors go.
Yeah.
So being able to crush that space, and then I look at everything through like an opportunity cost lens. Is if I go to the commercial space, is it going to move the needle backwards on the other stuff? If the answer is no, yes, then I need to systemize that business more and make sure if I step out or go do something else, it's going to be covered. So with that being said, if we have a commercial property that drops in our lap through our marketing or through our network, I know how to evaluate them. So I'm learning and I can do those, but am I actively seeking them right now? No. I don't know when that's going to change or if it ever is, but it just seems like that's always a natural progression, and people think you're kind of stupid if you don't. But I think everything has their own lane.
So, you're young, you figured this out, you've been doing this, you went through the hard knocks, the hard work, nothing was like handed to you. Your dad didn't hand you $1 million to get started. What are you kind of seeing right now? Because I was looking at you, I think you're coaching people and helping people, but I see from my lens, you have a different lens coming to where do you see people that say, hey, I want to get and start, buying a 2 to 4 and start investing? Where are you seeing like the biggest mistakes where people are just making like that really could just change, whether it's a mindset or anything that you're constantly seeing?
Yeah, number one's mindset. And the problem is the internet is a lot of people, they're making it sound super easy. And they're saying, oh, you go do this. And especially when you want to do the burn method. So somebody's like, hey, go raise capital, go buy this deal and go refinance out of it. But each of those individual steps are incredibly hard. So let's take the first B. So you got to buy a discounted asset. You don't just go on Zillow and find a great deal. You got to learn how to find them, network with them, become a wholesaler, whatever it is, and then renovate. Managing a construction site is really hard. You can get ripped off by a contractor really fast. Renting it, not that hard. I mean, there's easy ways to do it, but you can also get ripped off by tenants. And then the refinance is, to me, probably the hardest part. Knowing banking. Okay, do you go conventional? Do you go commercial? What kind of reserves do you have to have? Like, those are all things that are not common financial knowledge. So if you don't have somebody that's going to teach you that stuff, or at least like take the hard knocks or have some liquid reserves to take those knocks and bruises, then you're gonna be hurting. So setting the realistic expectations for yourself and following people online that are gonna actually walk the walk and tell you how it actually is important. Yeah.
So it sounds like what you're kind of saying is, if you're going to go buy, you really have to have a good team around you, and if you're working with, I have agents here that are good at finding deals. You can work with agents that are good at finding deals there because they're boots on the ground. They're calling, they're networking. They can do it for you. You've got to have good contractors, handyman, people that can do work that you can trust and aren't going to rip you off. If you're working with a real estate agent, I always tell people, look, you don't want to go find a real estate agent that's good at selling, dream homes. You want to find them that are good at that understand what a cap rate is, that understand what a good 2 to 4 unit is. And then I think get yourself a good property inspector company on your side. Get a good insurance agent, understands what you're doing. Make sure your CPA aligns with understands real estate. And then I think last but not least is have a good lender that could, like you said, tell you, no, don't do a 5-year prepay. They understand the market. They understand the economy, rates are going to come down. So really what it sounds like is get a dream team set up so you can have these people that you can rely on for consistent and to make your decisions and more confident in your decisions.
Absolutely. And that's really hard to do. So don't bounce around from market to market. Root yourself somewhere and really get a foothold in that area, because it's going to be really hard to find all those people and every single time you switch markets.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest challenge. We're here in San Diego and a lot of people do you buy around? And we're like, no, why? We're like, look, once you have your roots in with all the things I just mentioned, you have to go find that somewhere else. You might get screwed, or like you said, you might take a step back, you might get hurt, you might lose some money because you don't have that same your dream team, and that does change the game. It could really affect your business model. You could waste time getting lawsuits, all that crap. So I totally agree. So are you helping people, or you have a coaching program, or is there anything you're doing down there? I'd like to hear more about that, and what people can reach out to you about that.
Yeah, so we started, it's called the Real Side of Real Estate Community. So it's a community of real estate investors that want to learn how, at least right now, as of December 7th, 2023, it's learn how to wholesale and learn how to flip. And I think coaching gets a bad stigma. So I realized that there's more to just coaching. It's more about like support and having other people and networking. So it's a community. So it's education. So we have 2 live calls a week, further education on flipping and wholesaling. We have a Slack messaging group that has like 30 different channels that you have 24-hour access to. So for example, we have a general contracting tab. I have one of my buddies who's flipped or renovated 2,000 houses, does new builds. He sits in there and he's the expert in there. So if you have a question, you ask it in there and they get answers. We have one of the biggest title companies in the country in there. There's so like industry experts in each of those things. So you're not like most coaching programs, just one person just like kind of just telling you things every day. I don't want people to just hear it from me. I want other experts within their fields to be able to, and also the people that join, I want to learn from them. So that's kind of been the precipice of everything. And then there's a flipping course, there's a wholesaling course, there's a whole lot of other stuff, but that's kind of the main stuff.
Yeah. And I think you said the one word community. I think that's the big thing people are looking for. Something like, bigger pockets, that's that big community, right? You can go in there, ask questions. I would definitely, like you said, be leery of people on the internet or people that say it looks good and all this flashy stuff, because that's not really the reality of it all. And I think those guys are probably, ask them how they're doing now, because it's probably, they're not flashing their jets and cars and all that. They're probably having to call their investors that, hey, we lost money or we're having problems. So
yeah, and then it's setting the right expectation with those people too. So that's why. So I started ending my videos. It came out naturally, like, hey, and that's the real side of real estate. Like, jump out of a crawl space and be like, I'm covered in mud. That's the real side of real estate. Like, this is part of the game. And that the people that we've had join have just been, they come in with the right expectation. Hey, this is not going to be hard, but it is going to be life-changing if you take the effort and you take the time to actually put forth the effort. So I think a lot of people miss the mark on that too.
Yeah. And a couple more questions. Where is the best place people can find you, learn more about you? And then do you have, are you doing anything else besides your course? I didn't know if you have a podcast or anything or.
So no podcast yet. Okay. I do most of my stuff on social media on Instagram. Okay. So Instagram and TikTok, Tommy Harr 05. So working on progressing into longer form content, but coming soon.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, longer form for sure.
It is.
It's constant. And then always ask everybody kind of a final question. I'd be interested in your answer. What's your definition of generational wealth?
Oh man, my definition of generational wealth, it would be passing down. I mean, having freedom to do whatever you want. So giving your kids and your kids the option to take something and not have to work, but have the freedom to do whatever they want, maybe go to the right school they want to go to, start their own business and really build something for their own without having to struggle for it, but still having the principles of hard work and work ethic built into that.
And then what do you think, that's a good answer. What do you think your biggest lesson so far you've learned, two lessons about yourself going through this and also about business?
About myself, the biggest lesson I've learned is I'm not patient. So I had to learn patience, and real estate is you have to be incredibly patient when it comes to this stuff. And it's kind of the same thing with business. You overestimate what you can do in a month and you underestimate what you can do in a year. So when I first got into business, I was like, okay, I'm going to go work for my dad. I'll make 6 figures. It's going to be easy. And then you get into it and you're like, oh my God, this is so hard. And you just kind of get kicked in the teeth. And I kind of like the first flip, I would welcome the failure faster because you kind of figure out how the playing field really is and you can adjust with it faster and be able to move forward with a different expectation.
Awesome. Well, Tom, this has been cool. I mean, honestly, congrats on all your success. You're not even 30 yet, are you?
No, I'm 29.
Nice. Any kids?
Not yet.
Okay. So that's coming. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be an exciting time of your life and stuff. But it's kind of like, it's cool. I know I really want to leave with this, and you can kind of give me your opinion. I really think a lot of people that what's great about your story is you're young. You're never going to have this much time. You're never going to be able to take this much risk, because when you get older and you have kids and stuff, you don't have the energy, you don't have the time. It's the risk tolerance can definitely be a little scary because you have a family and things to take care of. So I think you've really, maybe you not being patient has helped you get to where you're at. But I just think a lot of people should be more inspired and should jump. If they're going to do something, like, why wait? Why wait till you're 30 or 40? Just get after it, make the mistakes, get burned a little bit, because you have plenty of time to recover,
Yeah. Yeah. That was my mindset the whole time. I had my dog with me. So when I was living in my living room of my first house hack, I was like, dude, this is not going to last that long, but this is temporary suffering for a long-term life-changing gain, So take those risks, take the failures. And like I said, I've got my wife's 10 weeks pregnant right now. So it's coming pretty soon. So I'm sure that's going to be life-changing, and I may change a little bit of my risk tolerance ways, but we'll see.
Yeah. What's funny about change too is you just, you think differently now, you just think so much differently. It's just like, you can't even, it doesn't shift until the baby literally enters the world. It's in your arms all of a sudden, it's a boy or girl, whatever. It's like, it's just, you'll see, you're just like, okay, whatever, I don't think it's a risk. I think it's more of just like, all right, I got to be think a little bit more responsibly here. I can't, like, it's just, I don't know if it's a risk. It's just more like this human being is relying on me now, like my wife can kind of take care of herself, worst case or something, but this boy or girl, like it's me, so
yeah.
Well, congrats on that. All the best wishes for 2024. Hope you guys crush it. Keep doing your thing. And everybody go check out Tom and hit him up if you have questions. And I appreciate the time today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you. If I'm ever out in that area of the country, would love to hang out. If you're ever at Masterminds, would love to hang out as well. But I definitely appreciate your time.
Awesome. Have a good day.
Thanks.
All right. That's awesome. Cool.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. 10 weeks. Yep. That's a game changer. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just one of those things. I mean, you tell people and you're like, okay, what's next? You just got to wait. I guess I'm not patient. I'm like, okay, it's going to be a long, long time.
It might drive you more, which is kind of scary to think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm already really driven, but I think when you have kids, you're just like, it's, I think it could drive you more. I mean, not for everybody, but you already have it. Yeah. It might just motivate you more to be like, I want to crush it more for them.
Yeah. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Probably with your personality for sure.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Awesome. Appreciate your time. If you ever need anything from me, just give me a holler.
Awesome. Appreciate it, brother. Have a good day. Okay.
If you're already a real estate investor, you know that aside from cash flow, you also get huge tax benefits by investing in real estate. But are you taking full advantage of all the potential tax benefits? We've been working with Tim Looney at CSSI for a few years now, and he's saved us and our clients hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in taxes doing cost segregation studies on their properties. Let me give you a few examples. We bought a property in 2019. If we had just used straight line depreciation, we would have saved about $18,750 in taxes. But because we did a cost seg, we saved $258,000. That's $239,350 more than standard straight line depreciation in the first year. The other great thing is, if you're classified as a real estate professional, you can apply this to other sources of income like W-2 or 1099 income, and you can also roll over any unused depreciation to future years. If you've owned your properties for a few years already, don't worry, you can still do a cost seg and save big on your taxes. This is not tax advice, so consult your CPA to see if you qualify to take advantage of these benefits. Call or text him at 318-469-9861 to get your complimentary property analysis. Once again, that's 318-469-9861. And I'll also include his information in the show notes. You guys don't want to miss out on these tax savings.